Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood from the Raymond Wood podcast. We are so excited to have a very good friend of mine, Pamela Millican Hartnell, join us today, and she is the Success Mindset Coach. How are you, Pamela?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you for joining us. So we've had quite a few different people on over the past couple of weeks in all different areas and aspects, and this is one of the ones that I've really wanted to get into. It was one thing I was really big on when I worked in the Premier League at Leicester City, and mindset was really huge then. That was going back in 2010. So just for our listeners, can you maybe give us a little bit of a background for maybe the next 1 to 2 minutes on what you do, what your day job is, and where it all started?
Where I was, oh my gosh, yeah, I've only got 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm a success mindset coach, and basically what I do, Ray, is change the quality of your thinking, because the quality of your thinking determines the kind of results that you create in your life. So if you want to create the kind of mental resilience and the toughness, especially for in sport, I've been competed in a lot of different sports, and I know that you have to have that mental toughness and that resilience to bounce back from failure, to understand where you go when you're injured and how you're going to come back from that, and all those kind of issues that you have.
Very good.
Right, you know, when you're up against a team, like for instance, when I was competing as a surfer, I knew that I was going to come up against people that had been surfing for 10 years, and I was very new to surfing. But a lot of people were saying, oh, don't get your hopes up. And I'm thinking, that only just drove me harder, actually. But a lot of people would get put off by that and intimidated by it. So that mental resilience you need to be able to put yourself in a confident place and to stay focused and centered on where you're going. So I teach that. I teach how to bounce back from failure, how to bounce back from setbacks, how to stay focused, and how to work within a team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I started that. Is that what you want me to go with?
It was, yeah. And just for our listeners, like, who is it you work with? Is it children? Is it adults? Is it everyone? Who do you work with specifically? Is it athletes, or is it anyone in general in life?
Yeah, basically everyone. I've worked with athletes. I've worked with golfers, pro basketballers. One girl, Rebecca Black, I can give you her name because she's given me a testimonial too. I've coached her for a long time, since she was about 13, and she actually got sourced by an American company. So now she's over in America playing basketball. And I've coached a fair few people that are high profile, but obviously they haven't given me permission to use their names right now. So, soccer players, I've taught soccer players, I've taught mainly golfers as well, and netball players.
So just for our listeners to understand where me and Pamela first met, we're part of a very special group of people, I think. And it was an iconic speaking group, and it was a group of entrepreneurs, and we all offered different areas in life and business. And one of the big things in football that's really touching for me, and I've seen a lot of it go on over the years, especially with the youngsters, and I think you put it in the best way I'd ever actually heard of it, this analogy. And when we spoke about like abusive family members, and especially around sports, we see it with mums and dads. They get very abusive towards the children. They expect them to be the next Michael Jordan today and don't give them an opportunity to develop. But you also said, Ray, it was a lack of education on the parents' side. So I think for me and for our listeners, and especially for our players and our programs, and for our parents, and I'll admit I've been caught up in this a little bit with my girls in the past, where you get a little bit short with them and you get a little bit angry. But obviously, if you could give us a little bit of background about this in particular, and maybe a little bit about your experience as well growing up when you were younger. And
Sure. So I grew up in a very abusive environment in one of the rougher states in England, and poverty, and abandoned by my whole family at 15 when I came home to an empty house. Now, that is a sad story, and my life could have ended there, and I could have gone on any number one of avenues of drugs or alcohol or whatever, and self-doubt. And obviously I had issues like that I overcame, but I made a decision very early on that was not going to be my life, and I was not going to live that way. But then I had so many people around me that were negative about, who do you think you are? You're a government housing girl, your family aren't educated, and all of those things, people putting you down because you can't rise above them, because they think that it's like tall poppy syndrome, I think they call it in Australia. Yeah. You know, they think that you think you're somebody, and they don't want you to be somebody because they're not anyone. So that makes them look even worse. And then one of my biggest beliefs is you can only go as far as the people around you have evolved. So for instance, if your parents aren't educated, or they've still got emotional issues, then, and they haven't worked their way through that, then they're going to block you. They're going to stop you from getting the success that you want, because they're going to be afraid. I'll give you an example. There was a lady at the coffee shop where I was the other day who was afraid to pick her child up to show her the fish. Now, I said, can I pick her up? Because I'm not afraid. And I picked the child up. I actually had to apologise because I crossed her boundary, but I picked the child up and showed her the fish, and I'd bought a muffin and we were feeding the fish. But she was allowing her fear of looking over her to impact her child. And that's what parents do. They stop. Most of the time it's unwitting. They don't know that they're stopping. They think they're doing the best for their child, but they're actually getting in the way of their progress, because your child can only progress to the extent that the people around them are evolved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, one of the big things that we see in football, especially on the sidelines, and I've been privileged to with my eldest daughter who plays tennis, and there's a lot of abuse that comes from parents towards the children. How do you sort of educate parents to first, is it like they identify the problem and then they give them different ways to deal with it? And how do you educate the parents around that? And then also, how do you speak to the children if you get involved with that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? How do you speak to the parents? First of all, I guess you've got to understand where they're coming from. I always seek to understand first.
Yeah.
Like I have worked with like the golfer, in one particular golfer who's actually given me a testimonial, so I can talk about him. I had to work with him and his mother because she was pushing him to be a really good golfer and then criticizing when he wasn't getting the results that she thought he should get, which actually stops him from getting the results that he wants to get because he's too worried about disappointing his mother. And that happens on so many levels with children and parents. And parents actually live vicariously through their children sometimes. And so when it's not their child's disappointment, it's their disappointment because they want to be able to brag about their child. And again, they try and live through their children. So I guess to answer your question, then you have to understand why the parent is thinking the way that they're thinking, and help them understand that what they're saying and what they're doing and how they're behaving is impacting their child rather than helping their child grow, because they're not letting that child find its own way through the issues that they're struggling with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So in regards to like your success mindset coaching, how is it offered to like families and that? Is it like a one-to-one basis? You speak to them via Zoom? Do you connect with them like in face-to-face? How does it work? What's some of the stuff that you offer them?
Both of those, and FaceTime, Zoom,
Brilliant.
which depends on locality, because they don't need to be like in the room with you.
Yeah.
And I offer, I have my master's in neuro-linguistic programming, because the way that you talk to your children becomes their inner voice. So if I'm going to criticize you for not doing what I think you're capable of, because a lot of the time, just to retract for a second, that I know if you're my son and I know that you're capable of so much more, but you're being lazy, and I think you're being lazy, but you may not be being lazy. You may just be so afraid of disappointing me that it's making you scared to try. Yeah. So I get the family together and work out the dynamic, like what is exactly going on, so that you can understand why each person's thinking the way they are and what's creating a behavior from that.
Yeah.
And then we meet in the middle, and I help the parent understand where the child's coming from, the child understand where the parent's coming from, and then we meet in the middle and we agree on a game plan.
Yeah.
Because then you're both working for a common goal, rather than the mother going, I know you're capable of more than that. I know you can do better. I'm really disappointed in you, and I pile the pressure on you. Now you're not going to give me your best because you're too frightened of getting it wrong, failing, how I'm going to be disappointed, what's going to happen in the car drive on the way home when I didn't do what you expected me to do. So it's about understanding where each person is coming from, what's creating that in the first place, like, because that's going to be programming from your mother and her growing up and how she was dealt with when disappointed her family. And so the child's now just a product of that. Yeah. If that makes sense too. So, and then everybody else around him is like, they all know there's so much pressure. Like I had one girl who was the basketballer that when she was 13, she had to develop injuries to be able to take the time off, to be able to sit on the couch, eat chocolate and watch Gossip Girls, which is what she wanted to do. But her parents were so keen for her to do really well at basketball. So she was pushed and pushed and pushed to play basketball.
And that was her response to just fake an injury and...
Not even fake an injury, get an injury.
To purposely get an injury.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And
yeah,
I think the way you've just spoke about that, and it makes me realise how deep it goes, and it can be a long, winding road to get that back and to get the players back on track. And it's one that I've noticed over the years, over the last 20 plus years of coaching, you can see it straight away. You can see the player playing and he might make a pass or she might make a pass and then instantly the eyeball if mum and dad have clocked it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most upsetting things to me, and it's something that we we try and rein in as coaches and say, look, we need to not to focus on mum and dad. Just you go and enjoy your game. Just go and give it your best shot.
But it doesn't matter how much you say that will do that. You know, that underlying thing is, I know that on the car drive home, I'm going to get an earful because I should have done this and I should have done that. And, you know, my kids used to play soccer when they were younger, and the parents on the side are hollering at them and like, run for the ball, you know, tackle that, where are you, what are you doing? And there's all this like noise, this static that the child's trying to process at the same time as he's trying to play the game and do the pass and wherever he's supposed to be on the field. Yeah. So and that happens in all sports. Yeah. And it's such a disappointment to them that they don't want to do it. I'm not going to try.
I think when you said as well about like players, you know, people get called lazy, but then you said it could be the other way as well. It's maybe they just don't want to do because they're scared of the outcome, what 100%. Mum or dad's going to say.
It's more that than being lazy.
Yeah. And I've seen it so often, and the parents is a really tricky one. The good thing that I like when I coached back in England was that because obviously it's free when you're in the academy systems, the parents weren't allowed anywhere near. Yeah, so when we were training, they weren't there to be eyeballing, and they were only allowed certain sessions or certain games. They could come, but then it was behind a barrier and a boundary, and it was way, way, way back off the pitch. So they couldn't be eyeballing and couldn't be looking. Yeah. Big problem we've got in Australia is obviously a lot of the sports are a paid fee for service. So the parents think because they pay the money, they've got a right to be there and be on top of the pitches. And then another big problem we have, which causes a lot of problem in Australia, you'll get parents who sponsor clubs and donate money and donate time, and then they think they're entitled to be in the middle of everything, be in the middle of decision making in teams. Yeah. And it's very, very poisonous within the club setup within football in Australia. And I think you said it before, boundaries need to be set, especially at club level in Australia, where once these boundaries are drawn, regardless if you're paying $10,000 a year, if you're paying an electrician to come and do and fix your electrics at home, you're not going to be on a shoulder or her shoulder telling her what to do. Yeah. And this is what we need to do. We need to put them boundaries in place. But that was a really good a good start, and it was a really good take on that. Now the next part, and this is really interesting. So I obviously got to know you really well, and I was blown away by how much you've done in life. Like, I thought I'd travelled and I thought I'd done things, and I met Pamela and I was like, oh my God, I haven't even got close to Pamela's life. So I don't know where to start with this one, but the first one I want to speak to you about is flying helicopters and scuba diving.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time, no.
Although maybe I could jump out the helicopter.
If you could tell me how you went from there to flying helicopters and scuba diving and what you've done in that period of time in your life, that would be amazing.
Oh my God, you don't have enough airtime for me to talk about that. That's great. I actually have put my helicopter flying on hold because there's so many other things that I'm wanting to do right now, but I absolutely love doing that. That was just something I'd always wanted to do, and I used to have this dream about flying over where I lived in England, in Barnstable, the river, and then there was this dream that there was all these sharks in the water, and I was flying above all of them, and I need to probably do a dream analysis on that, but I think I've got it worked out what it is. But ever since I was really young, I've always wanted to fly, and I think it's just about freedom, and I love that. And then under the ocean, it's just the same sort of thing, because there's no one in there getting in your ear. You're by yourself, and it's all on you. Yeah. And I think I like those. And that's why when I coached skiing and snowboarding for 17 years too, just launching off a cliff on my snowboard, it's all on me. Yeah. So it's easier sometimes to be doing a sport that's by yourself than it is to be part of a team, because not everyone is brought up to be a team player. Yeah. But I played rep netball well into my 50s, and I absolutely love it. So there's a different mindset for each, whether you're a team player or not. And when you're playing soccer, you've got to be part of a team. Yeah. So it's not just about where you are on the field, it's about where everyone else is too and what game they're playing. So you don't just play your game, you play their game too. Yeah. So and that's too much pressure. But so for me, I'll try anything. So I'll, like you say, there's a list. I know you've seen my list. Oh. I haven't actually put too many things on there, but there's a few on there.
Well, I always thought when I looked at my resume, because I really went through a spate of courses for 10 years. And for anyone that knows my background, I've got pretty much every football coaching qualification there is to hold. I hold 26 coaching badges and different mindset and physiology courses, and you name it, I've done it. And then I seen your resume and I'm like, wow, I'm just starting. Now, the next one, a law degree.
I know, that was to prove a point.
Who are you proving a point to, and why did you do that?
Good question. Well, I'm one of those people that's like a red flag. You say I can't do something, which is actually why I did scuba diving, because someone said, "Oh, you won't like it. you won't be, it'll scare you because there's sharks underneath the ocean. So then, of course, I'm going to have to go and do that. So I became a paddy diver and actually had a really good experience. There was sharks. There was this shark cave that we were supposed to be visiting.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not going to go in. So the rest of the team that I was with went in, and I went, what a stupid thing. Now I'm out here by myself so that I'm swimming in after them really fast. Go away from me. Wait for me. But that was fantastic. But I kept sinking because the belt was too heavy.
Yeah.
So if I had one weight, I was too light. And if I had the extra one, I was too heavy. So I was kind of like in the middle of the weight, so I had to keep floating up. So that was one of the things I did to prove a point. And my law degree I did to prove a point because my father said, he was a very violent man and used to kick 7 bells out of us all the time and say, you'll never be anything. So I thought, well, I'll show you. So when I was able to, I thought, what can I do that's the hardest thing? It was become a doctor or become a lawyer. And then I had this idea that I would do pro bono work for people. But then I realised I actually can't stand it when people are whinging and complaining and lazy. So I don't want to work with them anyway. So I did a law degree just to prove that I wasn't the stupid SOB that he said I was. So perfect. Yeah. That's really, and I did it. I think I did it in 6 years of working full time and bringing up 2 children at the same time.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, thank you for our listeners for listening. We're just about to go to our first advertisement, but we look forward to when we're getting back with getting into more information and more knowledge from Pamela. So thank you.
Would you one day like to be a professional football player? Would you like to be part of our pro player pathway? What is the pro player pathway? It's an opportunity for all Australian football players aged between 10 and 23 who want to join us to become the next professional football player. On the pro player pathway, you get to join me and my team free of charge to an event all around Australia. When you join me, we're going to teach you the secrets of football in Europe. And one day, maybe, you could be gracing the Champions League final. Guys, over the next 12 months, we're going to be coming around all the major cities of Australia. And when we come around all the major cities, we're going to be running our free events everywhere we go. So guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's a free event. It's for boys and girls aged 10 to 23. And I'm going to teach you the secrets of becoming a top European football player. Oh, and one final thing. We're going to be giving away 20 scholarships to join me on this program of a lifetime.
Hi everyone, this is the Raymond's Wood podcast. We are in episode 6 and we've just been speaking to Pamela and we're back for our second part. Pamela, are you all refreshed and ready to go again?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
The one thing that I took away was that you are a lot smaller than me when I first met you. But you're probably like one of the most fearless people I've ever met. You'll give anything a go. You're not scared of anyone, and even a big tall scouser like me.
Especially not a big tall scouser like you.
You put me in my place a few times, which was good. Now, skiing and Big Bear and California. So as I said, everything when I went through your bio and everything that I got to learn about you when we were away on the retreat and when we were part of our group, like you've done so much stuff. And one of the things I do, I've got 2 young daughters, as everyone knows, on the podcast, 15 and 9. And I'm trying to give them experiences where it's building up the no fear and they're not scared to give anything a go. And then I seem to remember that you've done a little fair bit and you spent a long time working in and around snow and skiing. So if you can tell us a bit more about that, it'd be amazing.
Okay, I'm a snowboarder, then a skier. So I'm actually a snowboarder on a pair of skis, which means my position is like way back where it should be. And I remember the first time I got on a pair of skis, I got into the lift line and my friend that I was going up with said, "Aren't you missing something?" I'm like, "No." She said, "Where are your poles?" I'm like, "Oh." So I just clip out of my skis, that's right. And the very first time, because I was a trainer examiner, so of course I'm one of those people, I'm a bit of an overachiever, that if there's a high level, I have to get to the top of it. So when I became a snowboard instructor, there was 3 levels. So I went level 1, level 2, level 3, then at level 1, level 2 examiner. And then I got onto the tech team too, which the technical side of snowboarding and how to create a perfect board with the quadratic side cut and all of this. So it's a performance. I'm very much into performance, and I coached a lot of snowboarders to hit the big jumps and to be able to spin and do inversions and stuff like that too. And I had great groups. One group was for England, and they used to call me Suicide Blonde because I'd get them launching off cliffs, and I'd be able to say, "What are you scared?" And they go like, "You're just mental." And I go, "What are you scared? Come on, ladies, take your skirts off. We're going." And I just launch and leave them, and they'd have no choice then but to jump off too. So we had a great time, but I absolutely love snowboarding, and I love just pushing myself and trying whatever it is, because I believe there is no failure, there's only feedback. So you either win at whatever you're doing, or you do well at whatever you're doing, or you don't. And if you win or do well, you learn something. And if you don't do well, you learn something.
Yeah.
So everything for me is a learning process. So I don't go in with the mindset that I have to be a winner. And I am an overachiever, so I do well at everything I do because I'm not obsessed with the outcome. Because if it doesn't work, I'll go, okay, there's another way of doing this. And I taught my children the same way, to be solution-oriented and problem-solving children, so that they focused on another way of doing something if it didn't work out. So there was never any failure in my house. It's always about, okay, that didn't work out. What else can we try? What else? And I got that from Thomas Edison, who had 10,000 ways the light bulb didn't work. Yeah. And people told him to give up and said, you're mad and you're never going to have electricity. And they said, you failed 10,000 times. He said, no, I haven't. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And so I adopted that philosophy from a very young age. And everything, I'm not afraid to have a go at anything, especially if you throw a red flag down and tell me I can't do it.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we try and do. I try and do with the girls at home. Is just constantly getting out there and doing stuff with them. Like even just little things, like over the weekend we were at the sunny coast and wanted to do kayaking, and the young one wasn't so sure. And I'm just like, come on, we're going. Just in we go. Let's go. And we just don't even give it time to think about it. And then couldn't get it out of the lake for the whole weekend. Sailboat, she wouldn't go on the sailboat. Then she got on the sailboat. Then she wanted to actually drive the sailboat.
Oh, I love it.
And then it was like, and that's one of the big key things. So going back, so you said you've got 2 children?
Yes.
Boy and a girl?
2 girls.
2 girls?
Yeah.
So how old are the girls now?
About to go 26 and 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they've grown up pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you obviously they got to experience a lot of this growing up. And what are the girls currently doing in their lives at the moment? Are they working? Are they married? Have they got children?
The 26-year-old models, and she has French bulldogs, so she studs those. Yeah, and she's got a load of other ventures on. And my eldest daughter is a high school maths teacher. She's a head maths teacher. And I was just saying to Philippa that she's appeared on the side of a bus, and we were just talking about, she said, Mumsy, I'm on a bus, on the side of a bus. And no kidding, the minute she said that, the bus went by, so we had to chase the bus to take a picture of it.
She's on the side of the bus?
She's on the side of the bus. I said, better than being on the back, Holly. Yeah. And then she's been on the side of Griffith Building because she works the same way as I do. She makes things fun. Yeah. She teaches children how to work maths in a fun way, so that she'll do escape rooms. You can get out this classroom when you solve the equation on the board, and there's all these clues and things and Cluedo, or she does games and whatever, like who murdered who with what, and it's all an equation. Yeah. And so I've taught them very differently to applaud, to go for something, and it doesn't matter whether you fail, because there is no failure. Yeah. You just learn something.
I'm so glad you spoke about that, because I remember you speaking about that particular daughter, and I was hoping we would draw that out in a conversation, and you did. And it's one of the things that we discovered in football back in 2010 when they done this huge review of how you coach and about setting the environments up and to make it as fun as possible and to have all different challenges, because if it draws out the same outcomes, what does it matter? Yeah. And that was one of the things that we had to really think about, how you set up the session, using colourful cones, using different size balls and giving them different challenges and different problems to solve on the football pitch. Yeah. And
make it fun.
Yeah, and making it fun. And that was the real big key thing. So fast forward to now, you've got a website which we'll share in the links below, and you've got programs that you offer. So people can reach out to you. We said they can do like one-to-one stuff. Do you have any like sort of group stuff that you do as well, like where people can join in and hop into groups? Yeah,
I do. I'm just about to relaunch. I put it on hold for COVID, and then I haven't got back to it, but I'm just about to relaunch my Reset program. And that's reset your expectations and resetting your boundaries. Basically, it's about just resetting your whole life, where your thinking is, like reset that quality of your thinking, so you can create what you want in your life rather than just living by default. Yeah. And when you live by default, you kind of have this inset. It's almost like a fixed mindset. You think that you're only capable of doing this, and anything outside of that you don't even try, because you've already made up your mind that that's not for you, or you can't do that. So the group program that I'm just about to put out, be at the end of November. It's I'll enroll people then.
It's really interesting. You touched on like fixed mindset and growth mindset, and that was something that we touched on back in 2010 and 11. It was one of the things that we had to employ as coaches. Yeah. when we looked at it, and I think it was by a lady called Carol Dweck.
Yeah, Carol Dweck. I love her book, and I've read that inside out.
Yeah, and that how hard is that though when you've got, especially if you're dealing with parents and adults who are getting on a little bit in age and they're in such that fixed mindset. Where'd you start with that? Because I've experienced it in my lifetime with family members who are so fixed mindset, and I find it's really hard sometimes where you get to the point where it's like you maybe just have to let them work things out themselves. But from your point of view, because it's your job to try and maybe fix that fixed mindset.
Yeah, fix the fixed mindset.
Where'd you start?
Yeah, again, that's a really good question, Ray. It depends on the dynamic. It depends on who that person is and what influence that they have in your life. If it's a parent, then you have to look at the results that your parents got. And it depends on the age of the person as well. So if it's a 17, 18-year-old, you can just say, you can look at your parent and look at the results that they're getting. And their results are a direct reflection of their thinking and the quality of their thinking. So you're only going to get the same amount of results if you copy their thinking or if you run by their thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So if you want a different result, then you need to think differently, which means sometimes you might need to jump outside your comfort zone and stop worrying about disappointing them.
Yeah.
So, and if they want the best for you, they shouldn't be disappointed anyway. But they don't. So it's kind of like working out that dynamic, like who are they? What is their influence? And, what is that dynamic and how do you change it? I like I said, do family work where I talk to the parent and the child and like, what is the ultimate goal here? Like, and ask the parent, like, why are you so hell-bent on your child achieving this? Like my father telling me I'll never be anything. No, he had to try and put me down because he'd never done anything with his life. So I couldn't be something because that would show him up, to show him how lazy he was, how uneducated he was and all the rest of it. So he had to keep me, or try and keep me small. Now that worked with my brother and my sister, but it didn't work with me.
Yeah.
So I was determined that the way that they lived, I look at the results that they were getting and like, hell more, I want more for me.
Yeah.
So
it's like you've lived 3 lives in one when
I
looked at your resume.
Yeah, I know. So I'll have a go at anything, but it's about not, like I said earlier, it's about not being obsessed or attached to the outcome. Like, I'm going to have a go at this and know why you'll want to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because your why will keep you committed rather than just being interested.
Yeah.
If you're just interested, the minute something gets hard, you'll give it up. But if you're committed to getting the result that you think you want and you have a really good reason for it, you'll stay committed no matter what happens. So for me, my mindset is I never want to be homeless again. I never want to rely on someone else to give me money so that I can be fed. I never want someone to tell me where I can live and how I can live. I want to be able to make all those choices myself. I want to be able to support myself.
To be independent.
To be independent, yeah, and not rely on anyone else. So that keeps me going no matter how hard it gets. And I've failed more times than I've succeeded.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter because it's all feedback.
Yeah. I think it goes hand in hand with exactly what you've just said. I think having the why, which is the big one that we all learned when we done the courses, but also having no fear as well. And I think if you got them hands in hand, I think it's a great way to step forward. Everyone and our listeners, that's the end of the second part of the episode. We're going to come back again, but we're just going to go to an ad break. So a big thank you, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and I'll give you your results: physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up, you get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, this is the Raymond Wood podcast and we are here for our final section of episode 6 with Pamela. Now Pamela, we were just touching on a little bit about fans and your why, and also we spoke a little bit about fear, and I wanted to touch and build on fear a little bit more because I read a few certain bits around it, and we had a really interesting conversation many weeks ago which was all around fear, and I want you to build on that for our listeners and more so for the parents as well.
Yeah, cool. Actually, before I go to the fear, I'd like to just confirm what I think and feel about the why. You need to have a really, really strong why, and that's My why is really strong, that I never want to be homeless and other things like I said earlier. But the parents need to know why they're pushing their children so hard. Like, what do they want them to achieve? And the children need to know why they want to do what they're doing. Because if you're doing something just to please your mum and dad, or just to please whoever that person is in your life, the minute it all gets wonky, you're going to give up and you're going to hate yourself, and it's going to start this horrible spiral. Yeah. So if you're doing it for yourself and for your own reasons, then it's all going to work out right, because it's going to keep you going, and no matter how many times you get knocked down, you'll get back up again, as the song goes. Yeah. All right, so I just thought about that as it came in. You get knocked down, you get up again. Anyway, so song. Yeah, I love that song too. So, but does that make sense? So that does, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it for you, and who's going to benefit, and what's the outcome going to be when you get where you think you want to go? Yeah. Because sometimes, like for me, when I did my law degree, well, I don't really do much with my law degree apart from it helps me understand people. Yeah. And have a structure when I'm working with people. So, but I never really wanted to be a lawyer, but I just did it to prove a point. So understand why you're going where you're going and why you're pushing so hard, because it will keep you on the right track.
So what would you say your why is before we move on to fear? What is your why?
Just like I said, I want my independence. I want my freedom. I never want to be reliant on anyone else to make decisions for me, because I can't afford to make my own decisions. I want my own money. And I want my own ability to be able to do what I want when I want, and not rely on anyone else to ask for permission.
That's amazing. It's one of the reasons why I put this podcast together and linked it, because a lot of people, like, again, people who live in fear and like, why are you doing that, Ray? It's going to cost you so much money to do a podcast and you're not going to make any money from it. And I'm like, well, my why is to try and show people that there is a pathway. Yeah. And there is a professional player pathway in football, but a lot of people don't know it's there, and they're not aware it's there, because there's a lot of things that go on that doesn't. It says it delivers a professional player pathway, but it doesn't. Yeah. So my why is to actually show people there is a way, and there's a way through it, and there's a way to gravitate through it, and we've got proven success. We're at 100% strike rates post-COVID. So every player who's come through the program's got a pro scholarship in Europe. Yeah. So that's my why, and that's my purpose. And I thought the podcast gives me a voice to try and bring some very special people like yourself on, and to share that, and to give these great examples of anything is possible.
100%.
And I think one of the best ones we learned on the course was that whole word impossible. If you flip it around to I'm possible.
Yeah. But see, that's why I'm passionate about it.
I think you shared that with me. So I think it was the first time I ever heard that was when you said it. And it's like, and it's so true. You need to just be careful of the language we lose.
100%.
Because that language that we use on a daily basis, I done it this morning. I had a really bad start to this morning, and it really didn't carry on well. And then I had to give myself a smack and go, right. Yeah. Just reset and go again. And
mastering your self-talk is something I'm really, really big on, and changing the quality of your thinking, because you can achieve whatever you want. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but you really can. You just got to get yourself out of the way. Yeah. And you got to understand, like, where does my thinking go when I don't do something very well? Yeah. Or when I think I'm failing at something, and I'm doing air quotes, right? Yeah. It's like, when I think I'm failing, like, where is my mind now? Do I think I'm stupid? Do I think I'm incapable? Like, what is the issue? Yeah. Because your thinking will either unravel you, or it will help you go where you want to go.
If we draw it back to fear, to finish on that for the episode today, if you could build on that fear and aim it towards the parents and the players a little bit, it'd be great.
Aim it towards the parents. Coming in hot, guys. So fear, I've got 3 things that I teach about fear, and the first one is false evidence appearing real, and many people might have heard of that, and the example I give is spiders. You know, if spiders were something to be afraid of, everyone would be afraid of them. Yeah. So it's not really about you being afraid, it's about your perspective of what's going on. Yeah. Right? Is that something you're really afraid of? Like, you know, I won't be loved, or I won't be seen as good enough, I'll be rejected, or whatever it is. What is your fear? And then look at it as false evidence appearing real. So and then the other thing you can do with fear is you can fear everything and run away. Which most people do. They don't want to be disappointed. They don't want to be rejected. They don't want to feel like they're a failure. Like John McEnroe was typical fixed mindset. You know, he was a brilliant tennis player, but he could have been even better, because the minute something went wrong, it was the crowd, it was someone sneezed, it was the umpire, it was the racket, it was the ball, it was the court, it was whatever. Yeah. It was anything. It was always somebody or something else's fault. But and he was a great player, but he didn't go that far because he had a fixed mindset. And Carol Dweck actually talks about that in her Fixed versus Growth Mindset book. And then so my other one that I like to work with is face everything and rise. And that was my philosophy: face everything and rise. Like, I don't care if I'm afraid. And when my clients say, yeah, but I'm afraid, I say, well, show me in the dictionary where it says you don't have to do it then. And I won't hassle you.
Yeah.
and I won't get on your case about it. But obviously they can't show me. So I said, okay, now I'm going to get on your case because it doesn't say that you don't do it just because you're afraid. So I think fear is just something that is put into you by the way that other people treat you and the way that they, just the way that they treat you when you do something wrong or you fail at something in their eyes, because most people think when they fail at something that they're a failure, not that they just failed at
One
this,
thing or,
that they're a failure. They make it personal. And it's not personal at all. It's just like, okay, that didn't work. So what else can you do to change it so the outcome's different next time?
So they're like three very simple statements to think about. Obviously, fear and failure and stuff, but also it's probably a lot more detailed once you start going.
It is,
through that process, and that's one of the building blocks that you start from. Is it when you speak about fear with parents and children and stuff,
100%,
and that, for them to understand it?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And what their outcome is. You know, why they think the way they think. How did they get there? And how can we change the quality of that so it's productive and constructive rather than destructive and, you know.
Yeah, and I think once they take a stand back and actually realise what they're doing and the way they're behaving and the language they're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like with anything, though, it's consistency as well, isn't it? You've got to do it time and time and time again.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do that 10,000 hour rule. It's like people think they can fix it with 1 or 2 sessions, and it's like.
But that's actually, if you look at all my testimonials, and I've got lots of 5-star testimonials and video testimonials, Google reviews, I can change someone's mindset in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's my genius. Because I just get people to see a completely different perspective. And the golfer, for instance, after he calls it a lesson because he was only a young chap, and but after his very first session, he went out and he made a PB out of the park. Just
you want to be careful with that though. Results that fast because you're not going to be able to monetize that properly, are you?
Yeah, but I can get that. But then
minutes.
It's the ongoing. It's like I can get you to change your mindset in that.
Now,
but
I
then
remember
the ongoing.
in the entrepreneurial group, I remember you doing that with some people.
Yeah, I did.
I remember I was getting swamped in the room myself for a couple of other things and help. And I remember thinking, I need to get Pamela to do that 15 minutes with me. So I might hit you up in the next week or two to come and do this.
My
15
pleasure.
Minutes.
My pleasure.
But it's going to be for free. I'm not going to pay you.
Did you hear that, everyone? I was going to say something then, but I'll leave that.
I shouldn't have said that because you're going to send me an invoice for this podcast now.
100%.
Now, you've done a fair bit of travel this year. And you've
Yes.
covered a lot of events, and one of the things that you do as well as me, you platform speak around the world.
Yeah.
Can you tell our viewers some of the places you visited this year and like some of the things that you've spoke about when you've been around?
So the tour I've just come back from, I went from obviously Australia to New Zealand to Sydney, Melbourne to Singapore. And I don't know if you've ever been to Singapore. Have you ever been?
No, I've connected on flights, but I've never actually
Oh
spent
my
any
God.
time there.
You have to get off and just go into the airport. There's this massive big, and I'm talking massive big fountain in the middle of the airport. And I put it on my story because I'm like, I have been to so many places around the world.
Wow.
And the fountain, it's just ridiculous. It's like you could spend the whole day just in the airport.
Yeah.
So when I came back home, though, then I've come up to Brisbane and then going to Melbourne next week to speak again. And again, it's just about speaking on mindset and changing the quality of your thinking. And I bang on the drum about that because it's the quality of your thinking that determines the results that you're getting.
Yeah.
And I talk about the 5 people you spend your most time with. So if you're surrounded by 4 people who are negative and fixed mindset, you're going to become the 5th.
Yeah.
So, or if you're surrounded by 5 entrepreneurs and they're all driven and motivated people, you're going to become the 6th. So who you surround yourself by and how the results that they've got in their life is what I always look at. Like how they handle themselves is how you're going to handle yours. So you've got to be super careful. So yeah, I love traveling around the world and talking to different groups of people about changing the quality of their thinking so they can create the better results. If they're not happy with what they've got right now, then let's just change it. And I can help you change it in a heartbeat.
That's amazing. Now, it was really interesting. We spoke a fair bit about fear today. And you mentioned to me that you're potentially going to Egypt soon.
I know.
And I've got
I'm so
really,
excited.
yeah, I was obsessed. I wasn't really a big school goer when I went to school. And just school didn't get me and I didn't get school. I was too young in school. I was an August birthday, which meant I was the youngest. I experienced a bit of bullying when I was younger, so it was always tricky school. But I always had an obsession with my history teacher.
Yeah.
And Egypt. And many, many years later, I got an opportunity to go to Egypt and I was so happy. But the person I went with, we went to the pyramids and we got there and it was time to go in and we got to the first step to go down into the pyramid and the person wouldn't come with me. And I'm like, what?
No.
I'm like, come on, we got to go. So it was like a fear thing and they were scared to go down.
But you went, right?
No, because...
What's wrong with you?
We had a couple of other incidents in Egypt where we had a few issues with a few males off the bus when we got off, and I felt uncomfortable leaving it because the person I was with was a female. And I was like, no, so I had to stay with her. And it was like, and I really kicked myself now that I didn't take that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm currently signed up this year to go to Kidder Beach, going off track a little bit to do my PADI license course.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to have to go diving then.
Yeah. Going under the water. I'd done my PADI when I was in my 20s in Thailand, but I really want to do it again and get rid of this fear, because when I'm under the water, I'm fine, but I've got this fear when I'm in the sea. I'm scared of everything in Australia. But I want to go back to Egypt, and I thought, you know what, I need to do it within the next 6 months. So one of the plans is, even if I go on my own, I'm going to go and do all the pyramids. I'm not scared to go on the pyramids. I really want to go in and do it.
Me too.
So
you should come with me at Christmas.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Egypt. Let's finish on Egypt. So when are you going? What are you going for? Is it holiday? Is it work? Is it a bit of both?
No, just a holiday. Just spend Christmas. I want to see Christmas and New Year in a different place.
Wow.
You know, I've spent 17 years coaching skiing and snowboarding, so all my Christmases were in Mammoth, in California. So now I just want to experience a completely different Christmas, and I'm there for New Year. So I go for December the 13th, and I come back January the 6th.
Very good.
Yeah.
And will you go to the pyramids while you're there?
100%. I'm cruising up the Nile. I've got a 3-day cruise and a whole bunch of things that I've got all lined up.
Yeah, we've done all that as well. We've done the Nile and everything, and it was really, really good. But yeah, it was just really disappointing. I was like, why didn't I just go into the pyramids and go down?
I wouldn't. You can't not go there.
So close.
Because you know they're supposed to be like they're triangle at the top, but they're actually a triangle underneath. They're actually a diamond shape too.
Oh, wow.
And all the energy goes down through the middle and everything. It's just, I could talk forever about that.
Yes.
But that's like, I don't know if you've ever been to Vietnam or anywhere like that. I loved Vietnam.
I've been to Vietnam.
Down the Chi Chi tunnels. How did you get down the tunnels? Did you go down?
No.
No, I would have said you got stuck.
Too big. Too big. I wouldn't get down.
Scary as all devilry. I was going to say
well,
that.
A big thank you, Pamela,
for
joining us on our podcast. And we'll definitely, if you'll join us again, we'd love to have you on again.
100%.
And we'll definitely maybe talk a little bit more about pyramids next time. But if anyone wants to reach out and anyone wants help with mindset and to go down that avenue, how can they reach out to you? How can they get your information?
They can jump on my website. That's www.pamelamillican.com. They can follow me, Reset with Pamela, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Amazing. And we'll also share it in the post notes for everyone. Yeah. So everyone, we hope you enjoyed episode 6 of the Rainbow podcast, and we will be back in a few weeks. A big thank you.
Thank you for having me.